I recently replayed the original Homefront. You know, this one, released by THQ back in 2011, and while I have fond memories of it, I was surprised by how badly it had aged. From what I remembered, it had an enjoyable, if rather short campaign, but a rosy tint made me forget about the clunky controls and the incredibly linear gameplay. It's only been 4 years since its release, but it felt old. Nowadays, it's a growing trend among shooters to allow a lot more freedom to the player, and Homefront the Revolution, Homefront's semi-sequel, embraces this approach by offering open-world gameplay that will feel very familiar to anyone who has played the most recent Far Cry games. The setup is still the same. Korean forces, also known as the KPA, have overrun America, but instead of focusing on the initial moments of the invasion like in the previous game, the Revolution follows a growing resistance movement and features gameplay that relies more on stealthy assaults and hit-and-run guerrilla tactics. We were able to try these tactics out during a 30-minute open-world demo that we played at Deep Silver's Dambuster Studios in Nottingham. Dropped into the middle of the Red Zone, a war-torn industrial area of Philadelphia, our orders were simple. Wrestle control back from the KPA by capturing multiple strategic locations known as strike points. With each strike point captured, the KPA hold on that area of the map decreases, and in turn the presence of the resistance is strengthened, meaning you'll see more emergent skirmishes between the factions, which will then change the way you can play through that district. Now, if you think that sounds a lot like how Far Cry 4's outposts work, you'd be correct. It is very similar. However, in Far Cry 4, you were often the one with the most firepower. If you were crazy enough, it was entirely possible to storm an outpost full of enemies and slaughter them all before reinforcements could arrive. You were often outnumbered, but very rarely did you find yourself outgunned. In Homefront the Revolution, however, that kind of brazen approach will only end in tears. Thankfully, players do have a little something in their possession that can help even out the odds. The Guerrilla Toolkit, or GTK, is your shortcut to a host of improvised devices, which prove to be a nice contrast to the superior drone-heavy KPA technology. During the demo, we were given access to an almost complete GTK. It was full of homebrew weapons and distraction devices like remote-controlled car bombs and Molotov cocktails that greatly aided our assaults or brought us time while we flanked enemy positions. The GTK doesn't come fully stocked as standard though. At the start of the game you'll find yourself having to scavenge for items in order to craft new GTK devices, and you'll also need to earn yourself plenty of money so you can buy new weapon variations. In the Revolution, you can customise your guns on the fly with these variations, and it's a great touch, botching them together Blue Peter style to create brand new weapon types in the heat of a battle. At one point I was trapped on the roof of a building by a group of KPA soldiers. I didn't have any ammo for my assault rifle and my shotgun wasn't doing any damage at long range, so I quickly removed the standard shotgun barrel, replaced it with one that fired incendiary rounds and burnt the bad guys to death while they were still behind cover. It's gimmicky, but it's a cool gimmick that feels pretty good to pull off. One thing that really struck me with the demo though was how hard it was. The game world didn't seem that large, but it was densely populated with enemies, and thanks to the emergent nature of the gameplay, you could never be sure where the snipers or the airships are going to be. Get spotted by either of these and the reinforcements will come in thick and fast, and unless you run far away, death is incredibly likely. Taking your time is obviously the best plan of attack here, but thanks to the non-linear nature of the KPA patrols, it proved very easy for carefully laid plans to go out of the window in an instant. Luckily, this unpredictability also made my multiple respawns feel less like a chore, because the enemies were never in the same place more than once when I restarted a mission. Although the majority of my time with the game was positive, I couldn't help but feel a little underwhelmed by the setting. After fighting for my life through the back gardens and supermarkets of the original Homefront, the sort of places where normally you would expect to feel safe, the run-down industrial look of the Red Zone with its colour palette of mainly browns and greys just seemed so generic and forgettable. Ultimately, while I wasn't blown away by the game's originality, mainly because the Revolution tends to borrow heavily from Ubisoft's big book of open-world game ideas, the action was exciting enough to hold my attention and make me push on despite the brutal difficulty. I loved the way I never felt safe, and the fact I could be easily spotted or overwhelmed by bigger, more powerful forces at any time is in keeping with the theme of the game. Plus, it meant that successful missions were met with a large adrenaline rush and a massive case of smug face. If you're attending this year's Gamescom, you'll be able to try your hand at the exact demo I've been banging on about in this video. If not, you'll be able to get your hands on Homefront the Revolution sometime next year.
But bringing things up to the modern day again, in the opening diner scene you can spot Rocksteady game director Sefton Hill wandering around.
So?
And is that Bat-Dad?
Sure.
Okay, chicken salad with no dressing.